Adventurers, welcome back to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. I am Tall Papa, and this is Tuwaka, and we are here today to talk about the Yokudan lore, about the creation. I'm actually robots. This is Lotus. In fact, Lotus, one of the things I was considering was asking you which one you wanted to be. Would you rather be Tall Papa? Or
then we got derailed before the show even started.
Right? Or, there's all sorts of fun names. Tuwaka, Septga. All sorts of fun names. Anyway, so that's what we're doing. We're back to creation stories. We've covered all sorts of crazy ones now. In fact, they're all crazy in their own ways, but we've gone from elves to the Empire, which is kind of a hodgepodge one.
Manish
to, let's see, we talked about the Khajiit and the Argonians.
Our kitty friends.
Yeah. And the Argonians is probably the weirdest one we've done so far.
Yeah, our tree-loving lizard buddies.
Until now. Here we are.
This one's, again, we're dealing with another Manish race, except, spoilers, this one's real weird.
Yes, this is Yokuda. So this is the Red Guard. This is the people who the Red Guard came from, the land of Yokuda, the Yokudan creation myth. And the most general version of this also shows up in the monomyth, which is kind of a combination of a bunch of these, and is called Yokudan Satakal the World Skin. And we're going to go through this, and just like we did with the other ones, the idea here is that we are going back to the source material to see what the sources say, and then we're going to build an understanding from that outward rather than just saying, okay, well, this is what this is like, and this is what this is like. Well, according to what, right? So we're starting with the source. We're going to build this out, and then we're going to find out what was the creation myth like. You ready, You ready, Lotus?
Let's do this.
This is all fun. All right.
Let's do this.
Like usual, I'll read it, and then Lotus is going to chime in, and we're going to take this piece by piece and try to break it down so that it is as understandable as possible. But, of course, it's going to be weird. Here we go.
Hopefully.
Satak, notice from the beginning, not Satakal, Satak. Satak was first serpent, the snake who came before. Snake and before both have capital letters. I'll just leave that there for whatever that means. And all the worlds to come rested in the glimmer of its scales. Okay, so from the beginning, Satak, serpent. This isn't the first serpent we've gotten in like a creation myth, right?
No, in fact, the idea of serpents kind of permeates a lot of aspects of the Elder Scrolls lore outside of even just creation stuff. I mean, it's all the way to the constellations and the sky and everything like that. We deal with serpents a lot in the series, so not unique out the gate.
Right. We also had a serpent and a tree with the Argonians.
Big into the whole serpent stuff.
You could say a dragon is a type of serpent.
Yep.
Dragon god, time god, Akatosh, serpent-like. Okay, so we've got a serpent, came before. All the worlds to come rested in the glimmer of its scales. And that, I think, is, at least it's going to be treated literally in this document. We'll get to it. But it was so big, there was nothing but. And thus it was coiled around and around itself, and the worlds to come slid across each other, but none had room to breathe or even be. So you just have a serpent wound into just like a knot.
A very tight little ball there.
Very tight ball. And there is only the serpent. That's it. And this is very similar to the other ones where you just start with a thing and there's only the thing, right? And then somehow there's something else. Well, what is the something else in this story? Let's find out. And so the worlds called to something to save them. Worlds stuck between the I guess the body of the serpent up against the body.
Yeah, I was going to say, you imagine when you have a ball of when people do those elastic, I don't know if people do that anymore, but those weird things where you have the elastic band balls. And it's if you ever get to the base of one of those, it's usually a ball covered in elastic bands. Picture that as the world mashed underneath all the elastic bands of our serpent.
But then also between. But what does even worlds in between mean? I think it probably means potential. It could also mean other beings, which we'll get to.
Yeah, there could be more there. I mean, if they're reaching out to something else, it does imply that there are other things in existence besides said worlds. Serpent.
Yeah. So the world's called to something to save them, to let them out. But of course, there was nothing outside the first serpent. All there was that. So
Yelling into the void.
Right. So there's not even a void in this one. Check this out. So
I get yelling into the void as in like an empty space, but actually,
but there's not even a void.
Literal void, and it's not even here.
It's not even there. But there is sort of a void. So to aid them, aid had to come from inside it. This was Akel, the hungry stomach. So the one place that there's room, a void, is in the stomach of the serpent, and it's hungry, which implies that it's empty, kind of like a void. This is starting to sound very similar to some of these other myths, right? A thing, the antithesis of that thing, they come together, they make something else. It goes on. Akel made itself known, and Satak could only think about what it was, and it was the best hunger. So it ate and ate. So Satak, Akel, you can start to see this becomes Satakal. Kind of combines.
Yes. Also, I just really enjoy the fact that it's like, man, I am the best at being hungry. I just can't. Nobody can outdo me being hungry, so I'm just going to eat as much as I want. Right. It's a very strange thing to be number one at.
Yeah. So it's also similar to the one we talked about last time with the Argonians and how the name get kind of combined.
Yes,
right?
It forms out of other parts of names.
Right. So we've got Satak, Akel, Satakal, right? Soon there was enough room to live in the worlds and things began. So the serpent begins eating itself in order to make room for other things to have space. So most things ended quickly and were not good or gave up on themselves. So the very first things that emerge into that space are not good at being, so they end. Because they've never tried being before. They haven't figured that out, right?
So a second ago, we had the serpent's stomach that was the best at being hungry, and now things are coming into existence, and they're like, "Oof, never done this before," and then I'm not existing anymore.
And then they know about, which I'm assuming also means they probably just get eaten because they're not very good at existing.
Right, being alive, so they're just consumed, I guess. Yes.
Right. The final sentence in this very long paragraph is, some things were about to start, but they were eaten up as Satak got to that part of its body. This was a violent time. So this is...
I love that little addendum.
This was a violent time, yeah. So this is very similar in other creation myths, beyond just Elder Scrolls, of a chaos at the beginning of time. In the Christian and even Hebrew understanding, there's kind of this chaotic... it's usually described as like waves or like an ocean. And the waves of the ocean and that kind of thing. There's this chaos, right? Like if you watch waves in an ocean, they have a pattern, but they also seem random and chaotic. So this becomes something else, though. Pretty soon, Akel caused Satak to bite its own heart, and that was the end. So the heart being like the core, the root, the main structure, the progenitor of its own life force, that kind of thing. The hunger, though, refused to stop, even in death. So even once it ate its own heart, it was still hungry. And so
too hungry.
Yeah, and so the first serpent shed its skin to begin anew. Now the skin becomes very important. Notice here that it says skin before. At the very beginning, it says that the worlds rested in the glimmer of its scales.
Right. So we've kind of changed our existence type here.
Yeah, so skin, but like the two are connected, right? The scales are part of the skin of the serpent. It's that outside structure.
I mean, if you ever see a snake, they kind of shed that, I have a snake in my yard that does it all the time, and my dog likes to try to play with them. And it's just like, it just sheds off, and you just have basically a hollowed out fake snake, and then snake's off somewhere else. So
right. So you end up with this
typical
skin.
snake behavior.
Right. The skin looks like the old thing, but it's now different from that thing. It's separate. As the old world died, Satakal began. So this is the first time we have the combination of those two words as a singular thing. Satakal began. Satakal being the snake that eats itself, sheds its own skin, and rebirths. A cycle of birth and death. We've talked about this a lot.
Yep.
This is
a very common theme.
Right. So this is very similar to Kelpas. And you mentioned on previous episodes, very similar to the Ouroboros.
Yep. Which is another image we see a lot in the series.
Right. And so there's a reason for that, is that it makes sense in the cycle concept, but specifically in Yokudan lore, we have an Ouroboros. We have Satikal, which is functionally an Ouroboros. It is a creature that eats itself and then rebirths itself. So as the old world died, Satikal began. And when things realized this pattern, so did they realize what their part in it was. Let me read that again. When things realized this pattern, so did they realize what their part in it was. What were these things? Well, it must be the things that began existing in the opened up spaces that
have now
came about right through the eating,
I was going to say they
right?
have now been basically forced into existence, I guess,
Right.
for lack of a better word, because they're just eating away at what was there.
Right. So the idea is, as things come into existence and the cycle happens again and again, these things start to notice that there's a pattern. So they've learned how to survive and realize what's going to happen in order to maintain their own existence. This starts to feel like Daedric princes or Aedra, who are able to move from one Kelpa to the next. Hermaeus Mora talks about this. There's a lot of, you and I have had many discussions about these weird things that seem to happen with the nature of the world ending, the Kelpa ending, and these powerful beings finding a way to continue their existence into the very next one, even though things are different every time.
Right. And then there's this weird scenario of, like, to that point, it seems like some creatures can make that jump and exist from one timeline to another, whereas the majority of it's essentially a reset. But some people bypass that reset, it seems like.
Yeah. And the Yokudans even have
quotes on that one.
Right, beings. Right. The Yokudans here have an explanation for how that works, which is kind of cool. They began to take names. So first, they begin to identify themselves, like Ruptga or Tuwaka. Ruptga eventually becomes Tall Papa. So those were the names we used at the beginning. And they strode about looking for their kin. So they realized there's more than just the two of them. Like there's a bunch of them. And just like many of these other monomyth stories, it only mentions a few of these beings or powerful entities, but there are more. That's part of what they're alluding to. As Satikal ate itself over and over, the strongest spirits learned to bypass the cycle by moving at strange angles. I love this. It's like, hey, if you just shuck and jive a little bit, you get out of the way.
It's fine. Just slip right through the crack. Like, you'll be fine.
Yeah, just avoid the big mouth. It's coming to get you. Just juke to the side a little bit, like a running back, and then you get right past it. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So taught them all to be running backs.
Exactly. Everybody's Barry Sanders.
Yeah. There you go. Oh man, that's an old reference.
He's like the best running back. So I just referenced him.
When did he retire? What year did Barry Sanders retire?
Good Lord.
90 something?
Yeah, he's been retired a long time.
Right. Okay, man, we're old. Okay.
Sure.
They called this process the walkabout, a way of striding between the world skins. Now notice there's already a reference here to the world skins. The different skins that come off the snake become past Kelpas or worlds. Those are the worlds in the scales. It's all kind of connected.
Right.
Ruptga was so big that he was able to place the stars in the sky so that weaker spirits might find their way easier. This is interesting in two different ways. Ruptga is the biggest, the most powerful, the firstborn of Satikal in a way that can recognize itself. And you might think that means that this coincides with Akatosh, which it might.
It could.
But there's no reference to Akatosh putting the stars in the sky. If anything, that's usually associated with Mundus or Magnus.
Magnus.
Not Mundus. Mundus is the world. Magnus
Mundus.
Yeah, words don't work great in my brain. It's names of things. Everybody knows this. Magnus, like this is more associated with Magnus, and then the star orphans and the things that broke off of Magnus and became stars and whatever happened to create stars. There's a few different versions of this. But anyway, that's not usually associated with Akatosh. That's usually associated with Magnus. But yet Ruptga here does seem like an Akatosh corollary in other ways, which we can talk about in a little bit. So he puts the stars in the sky. The second point that's interesting here is that feels like something like sailors would know about, right? Using stars to navigate.
Right.
The Yokudans,
as we know in real life counterpart, that was how navigation was done.
right. So Lotus, what was Yokuda like before the Yokudans came to Tamriel?
I was going to say, so that's the big thing is they actually sailed over here, and you have a big thing where piracy, which not the most glamorous version of being a sailor, is a long-standing, I would almost call it like a thing that you'll see with Red Guards and Yokudans, because again, we'll get kind of into the fact that they're descendants of them, like the regatta and stuff like that.
Yeah.
All aside, sailing is a thing that's built into their culture.
Yes. Even now, even as Red Guards, but and it goes back historically, right?
Right. They've been historically sailors of various types.
Right. So a culture that was known for living off of the sea, for sailing. It's thought that Yokuda itself was kind of a chain of islands potentially, rather than one big continent, or a continent that became a chain of islands as they kind of hung on to surviving there, and then eventually some of them moved over. But yeah, sailing is a part of it. So it makes sense that in their creation story, they would use stars to navigate. So therefore, you've got that connection there. This practice became so easy for the spirits that it became a place called the Far Shores, a time of waiting until the next skin. The Far Shores are still understood in Redguard and Yokudan descended theology to be where you go when you die.
Yeah, I guess without going on like a big tangent, maybe we should just clarify for anybody. When we say Yokudans, Regatta, or Redguard, all kind of interconnect. They're not exactly the same thing, but you have Yokudans and Regatta and then Redguards. They're all connected.
Yeah.
They're essentially the same group, almost in different time periods would be the easiest way to put it. That's not exactly the situation, but just so people know what we're talking about, because we will use those kind of interchangeably.
Right. The Yokudans were, when they lived in Yokuda all together.
Yes.
The Regatta were the sect of Yokudans who came to Tamriel and conquered a lot of the needs.
Yes.
And then over time, they became called the Red Guard.
Yeah, the Red Guard was almost like the bastardized version of calling Regatta. Red Guard.
Right. So they are,
just as context for that, just in case that got confusing, that we kind of were jumping between those names. It's more so time periods in which they take place.
Right. And that specific line of descent from Yokuda. Yep. So this practice became so easy for the spirits that they called it the Far Shores. That feels to me a lot like the Nords saying that they're going to go to Sovngarde. They have their place to go when they die. But very specifically here, this place is somewhere that functions differently, that's outside of this world skin, this Kelpa, this version of Mundus, where they can then pass into the next, which is distinctly different. And I'd have to go back and double check this, but I don't remember the Nords thinking by going to Sovngarde they would come back in the next world.
No, there isn't an idea. Again, anybody could correct me if I'm wrong, but there's not really a situation where it's like hoping for an afterlife type of deal or reincarnation. That's not really the goal. It's just like, we get this sweet mead hall that I get to live in forever and go on hunts if I want. And like, we're basically just 24/7 party time now that I made it to Sovngarde.
Right. It feels like
very
a heaven.
different mentality design than this.
Right. Yeah. So to them and to many of these other cultures, the place you go when you die is really considered more of like where you want to be for that point.
It's where you end up.
It's where you end up.
You're on a pit stop to the next life.
Yeah. So Far Shores here implies that not only for the gods, but also potentially mortals, this is a place you go to then wait for the next Kelpa, which is weird, which means that it's like distinctly different from maybe it's the same as Aetherius. Maybe it's a realm in Aetherius. Maybe it's something beyond Aetherius. Whatever Aetherius is, according to these other theologies, it seems like it's something that has kind of a slightly different function than that.
Right.
But maybe actually insight into the way Aetherius actually works, in that it is distinct and different and separated enough from Mundus and Oblivion that it is the thing that's beyond time that allows you to go sideways between world skins and kelpas.
Yeah, it gives you that sweet cut action.
Yeah. So you got that. And Chat Boko Hunter says, I thought Sovngarde was equivalent to Asgard/Valhalla. Yes, there are some similarities there as well.
Very, very similar. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So it goes on. Rupka was able to sire many children through the cycles, which is interesting because it's as if he pairs up. I don't know if they have to have like two individuals come together to make a child in this theology, but in some of the other theologies, they just make other beings out of themselves.
Yeah, they just kind of form.
Right. So that's weird because we don't necessarily know how he's siring seems to imply there's some sort of connecting with somebody else in order to make a child together. But it also, or maybe not. I guess if a vampire sires another vampire, they're taking a human who already exists. It's not actually through a birth process.
Oh, and then like, I guess that's
so they
true.
Change them
Again,
into
it's
children.
kind of not defined here.
It's not defined here, but it is interesting that those children can be deposited through many different cycles and yet kind of build over time to become a lot of them, which is kind of interesting. So he became known as the Tall Papa. I get the Papa part. I'm not sure about the tall. Maybe tall means big. Like he's the big guy.
Yeah, maybe implying that he's the big guy who can walk between kalpas.
Walking. Yeah. Tall people walk further. They take
we'll
bigger
get into
strides.
the walkabout and stuff like that.
Yeah. The walkabout.
Yeah, so
maybe,
that's maybe the idea is like, he's tall enough to walk between kalpas or something. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. So he continued to place stars to map out the void for others. This is the first mention of void, which is interesting. But after so many cycles, there were almost too many spirits to help out. They got really good at jumping from world skin to world skin. So
it's
something
kind of
needs
funny
to change.
that it's just like, ooh, we got too efficient. Way too many people are getting through.
Right. Yeah. So they need to change it up. He made himself a helper from the detritus of past skins, and this was Sep. Okay, so pause again. Notice this isn't a child. He doesn't make a child named Sep. He makes this helper out of the detritus, the refuse, the thrown away parts.
I was going to say, I literally like, hey, we got this extra junk. Can we do something with this?
Right. So basically he's taking the previous kelpas, the material of the worlds that came before, and makes a being out of them that is not previous worlds. It's its own creation. Also called the second serpent, which kind of implies that it might be as powerful or at least equally important as the original first serpent, Sadakal, which is kind of weird, right? Like, how does that,
a little bit.
How does that work? Well, this being becomes important. Sep had much of the hungry stomach still left in him. So he's functioning almost like a previous version of the serpent that's been brought back. Multiple hungers from multiple skins. He was so hungry he could not think straight. Sometimes he would just eat the spirits he was supposed to help, which is very similar to Sadakal originally getting hungry and eating, and they needed to dodge out of the way in order to survive into the next world skin, right?
I just love how he's just like, man, way too hungry. You know what? You don't pass. Nope, don't pass. Go. You're done.
Yeah, just out of my way. I'm gonna eat you. All right, I'll eat you.
All right, too late. I'm eating you.
Yeah. So he couldn't think straight, and he started eating the other beings that he was supposed to help, which seems almost intentional from Tall Papa because there were already too many of them anyway.
Right. Like, well, okay, everybody's getting a pass. Maybe, you'll be safe if you go this way. Oh man, look, they didn't get there. That's a shame.
Right. But then the very next sentence changes it up because it says, but Tall Papa would always reach in and take them back out. Which seems to mean that Tall Papa... Okay, so let's back up. Tall Papa takes the old skins, makes Sep, in order to solve the problem of there's too many spirit beings out here. Sep then goes crazy, super hungry, decides to eat some of those beings, which would then make more room because there's too many of them. But Tall Papa's like...
Which is the goal.
Yeah. But Tall Papa's like, nope.
Don't do that.
Yeah, and so he reaches back into his stomach and pulls them back out.
It really, again, just from this story, and I was going to say, this is one of the creation stories that I find really entertaining. I've always thought this is very funny just because I'm like, this literally strikes me as somebody who's like, okay, I need to have it be that I'm trying to look, I'm solving a problem because this is like a problem. There's too many spirits getting through. But how do I also make myself look like the hero while I'm doing it? Oh, I'm not going to let you get eaten. No, that's terrible. It's like, well, we wouldn't be getting eaten to start with if you didn't set this up. Like,
Yeah.
it's this weird, like, hey, I'm going to solve the problem, but I'm actually not going to solve the problem. It's just going to make me look like I'm saving you.
You know what?
Thing.
You know what's also kind of weird about this is that if Tall Papa is a corollary to Akatosh, we know Akatosh started time is the foundation for Mundus being able to exist in orderly fashion. Things can do things because now there's time. Everything's moving in a linear path, right? But then that knowing that knows that there's going to be an end of time, and even has descendants, if that's actually the truth of who Alduin is, right?
Right. So
that are designed to end time, knows that beings like Mehrunes Dagon exists to end time,
literally to restart things.
Knows that this is the process and that time will eventually end, and then yet still steps in to stop that from happening occasionally.
Right.
So,
which is like, so is it supposed to happen or not? And that's why we've brought this up before, where it's like, did we do good in Skyrim or did we mess things up?
Right. So it seems like Akatosh both wants time to exist, wants reality to, wants Mundus to move forward, wants this Kelpa to work out the way it's supposed to work out. But then when it finally gets to the point where it's like, okay, well, now it's time to be done with it, he's kind of like, yeah, no, let's just keep it going. Right. So which feels very similar to this of like Sep eating the other beings and then being like, yeah, but no. Okay, let's pull them back out.
Yeah. The analogy I always think with this is like, if I really want to go on a roller coaster, or I really want to go bungee jumping or skydiving. You want to do this thing that's like got this air of danger around it.
Yeah.
Or excitement. But then when you get to the point where you have to jump with the bungee cord, jump out of the plane, you get to the top of the roller coaster spike, whatever you call it.
The big moment.
Hill,
yeah.
The big moment.
Commit.
And you can't commit to it.
Yeah.
That seems to be so much of what this kind of is, where it's just like, you signed up for this, but you can't you don't have that last bit to commit to it type of deal.
Yeah. It feels kind of almost like a change of things, or is it just a general misunderstanding of their intentionality, what they're actually trying to accomplish, which could be the case as well. But it gets even more interesting. Finally, tired of helping Tall Papa, Sep went and gathered the rest of the old world skins and balled them up, tricked spirits to help him, promising them this was how you reached the new world, by making one out of the old. Who does this sound like?
You're very Lorcani. We're tricking people.
Right. Yeah. It feels like Lorcan, who's like, okay, we're going to make a Kelpa that's different from all the others. We're going to invest parts of ourself into them. And in this case, he pulls out even more old skins and is like, well, pull them up. This is what I'm made out of.
It's going to work like this. And this is going to be a whole different thing that has you involved. And we're seeing a lot of parallels to the one nobody liked in the God Pantheon.
But is also the one that's responsible for anyone being here anyway. So,
well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
The other gods seem to have lots of issues, but it's the only reason that mortals of Tamriel, for the most part, seem to exist.
Right. Now, in the other lore stuff, many of them feel tricked, and they feel there's a lot of, bad feeling towards Lorcan.
Yeah.
In this, it says, the spirits loved this way of living, as it was easier, no more jumping from place to place. Many spirits joined in, believing this was good thinking. Tall Papa just shook his head. Okay, so a few things here. They seem to like the idea. The creation of Mundus is really what they're talking about. This version of time, this version of the world, was actually easier for many of these beings because they didn't have to keep jumping Kelpas. The intentionality here is to make a version of reality that doesn't end, is what this is implying. Yes. And the spirits were cool with that because they were worn out of going sideways.
Dodging being eaten.
Right. But what's also weird here is Tall Papa just shook his head. Tall Papa wasn't real. It doesn't say he was mad or he stood up against it, but it says he shook his head, which means he wasn't approving. So if the parallel here is Akatosh and Tall Papa are the same, Akatosh establishes that time can exist in order for things to happen, which seems to kind of be implied here, even though it's not said.
Yeah,
Akatosh is not cool with this version of the world in this story. He wants it to end at some point.
Yes, and it's kind of goes back to the problem of like too many spirits were getting through, so it kind of goes alongside with like, well, okay, maybe we don't want to just never have this end. Like, again, a little bit of contradictory back and forth type of deal.
Yeah.
But it definitely seems more like, well, no, things need to end because I don't know, we're getting overloaded with spirits or whatever Tall Papa's issue is. Doesn't specifically mention, but it's it's a little weird because again, it's kind of flip-floppy. It
is kind of flip-floppy. It's
like
so here's
very non-committal.
I've got a theory about this. Especially after reading a lot of these and kind of digging in deeper as we've been doing lately. Yeah. There's a lot of duality in these,
without a doubt,
which makes sense, right? You've got a thing 100%. And the antithesis of that thing, and they come together.
Yep.
Then you have a thing that breaks off, and the antithesis of that. And then you have a thing, and then that thing makes something else, and then they're opposed. This has happened here. Tall Papa and Sep are opposed to each other. They are for all Tall Papa's good plans to make something happen the way he wanted to, Sep ends up making his own decisions and does something separate and different. But also, they come from the same source, and then they separate, and they are opposites, right? There are theories in the lore that Akatosh and Lorcan are actually the same being.
Yes.
There are two sides of the same coin, and when you get to the spiritual world, God's world, you can take part of a thing off from the other and kill that half of it, and yet the other half still survives. There are these weird this kind of stuff happens in, if anybody's into Elden Ring lore, this is weird Elden Ring lore kind of stuff where a being is itself and then also something else at the same time, and it's really the same thing. This stuff doesn't have to make sense in a physical sort of way. Like, you can't divide me into two people, kill one of me, right? That wouldn't work.
Right.
But in the world of spirit, it seems to be that could be the case.
There is that separation that theoretically could allow both.
Right. So that seems to imply that Tall Papa / Sep or Akatosh / Lorcan both want the world to exist, but also want the world to not exist. Yeah. All at the same time.
You need to exist, but you constantly need to be reset and not be the same.
Right. And that those are
but I don't want to commit to letting you go and die either.
Right.
It's very, very, very non-committal.
It's very weird. Yeah. Okay. So, but in a way that kind of makes sense that a mortal wouldn't be able to understand it because we don't interact with objects in our own world that kind of work that way. So I think there's kind of some fun stuff going on there. But we're down to the last paragraph. We're almost through it. Pretty soon the spirits on the skin ball, it's just called skin ball, started to die because they were very far from the real world of Satakal. So the idea was they could go into this version of reality and then they don't have to step sideways because it's not going to end all the time. But I guess it lasts long enough that some of them don't survive it. They start to die off.
Well, it's the sort of situation where lifespans in real life have existed so much. We're encountering all these other effects from being alive for so long that weren't really that commonly understood before, because it's just the average lifespan is so much longer. It's hard because the human body starts to break down over that much time, but we haven't died. So it's also kind of a whole new, but it's weird.
There's also a connection here to Lorcan convincing the spirits to imbue themselves in creation, which weakens them. So there might be that as well. There might also be the fact that this version of reality is built off of something different than any previous one had. So it actually functions in a different way.
That could also be you're just not getting the same experience, I guess, so to speak, out of the original source. It's this crappy knockoff world isn't quite the same, so we can't survive in it.
Or like the elves thinking that they were descended from these beings, and that may just be that those it seems like the nature of these things is to divide themselves into smaller things over time. And yet if you stay in one place long enough, those things descend into smaller things that become mortal and die. So this is kind of implying that as well. Goes on. And they found that it was too far to jump into the far shores now. Like they were kind of stuck there. The spirits that were left pleaded with Tall Papa to take them back. But Grim Rupga, his original name, would not. And he told the spirits that they must learn new ways to follow the stars to the far shores now. Things function differently. They have to come up with a new way to do things. If they could not, then they must live on through their children, which was not the same as before. This goes back to the Altmer concept that mortals, especially elves, descended from the gods. They are the children of the gods. They are the way the gods figured out to at least perpetuate existing in this existence, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So maybe that's part of it?
Could be. Again, it's just like it's a weird situation that it's like, well, you sort of got this thing that you asked for, but it's like a monkey's paw scenario where it's like, well, nope, now that it's not working out quite the same, now I'm not going to help you. Unfortunately, you got to find your own way.
Yeah, like Tall Papa
tough love.
Tall Papa is kind of sketchy in his response to this stuff. He was saving them from Sep's mouth, pulling them out a little while ago. But now that they've committed to this other thing, he's like, sorry, you just got to live with it.
Well, I also kind of like, again, referencing all the way back to a point I made previously where it's like, well, it's kind of sort of making him out to be the hero in the scenario. It's like, oh, yeah, look, you're getting eaten, but maybe, well, now it's like, well, you didn't do things my way. So you know what? Oh, well, you should have done things my way.
Yeah. So Sep, however, needed more punishment. Not Tall Papa wanted to punish Sep because of, he needed more punishment.
Nope, you need this. It's good for you.
And so Tall
Don't
Papa...
make me hit you.
Right. That's what that feels like.
Bad snake.
So Tall Papa squashed the snake with a big stick.
I also like how his punishment is to crush him, just like squish.
Yeah, this is also the first time. I mean, he's been called the second serpent, but he's still in like the form of a snake.
Yeah, and now he just outright squishes him.
Right. So this also is similar to killing Lorcan, taking his heart and throwing it into the ocean, right?
Exactly.
Like this idea. And then
this got real sketchy. This got really, really sketchy.
Right. And then we get this. The hunger. Remember, he was hungry because of all those other skins were hungry and, Sadakal was hungry. The hunger fell out of Sep's dead mouth and was the only thing left of the second serpent. While the rest of the new world was allowed to strive back to godhood, Sep could only slink around in a dead skin or swim about in the sky, a hungry void that jealously tried to eat the stars. What do you make of that?
I was going to say he got dunked on hard at the end here.
Yeah. But what does that actually mean? Like, is Lorcan floating around in the sky as a hungry void? Is that what that means?
It could be. I mean, and this is where the ties to Lorcan really seem to come in, where it's just like, okay, we've made reference to so many things could kind of be the embodiment of Lorcan, and it's like this is another story almost like it. It's like we've had that thing where is Maik actually a physical embodiment of Lorcan?
Is the prisoner a reincarnated Lorcan that's coming about to change reality?
And in this situation, it's just like, okay, so Snakey here is just like this hollowed out, smushed husk that basically just roams existence hungry as hell and not really getting any satisfaction. It's like, man, that took a dark turn for him real quick.
Yeah. You know what this feels more like to me is that this version of Sep is much more in line with something like the Void, capital V, Void.
Yes, capital V, Void, rather than Void as in an empty thing.
Right. The Void or Sithis or Namira or that
big
end
situation I could see with Sithis or Namira for sure.
Right, the negative, the darkness, the emptiness, the thing that is wanting always to consume more and is never full. Like that side of it. So I think when we go back to the beginning and it talks about the snake and then the hunger is the corollary for the capital V void, that other thing of the two original progenerating elements, I guess. I don't know.
I was going to say, I don't even know what you refer to some of these things as at this point.
Right. Like the two primary forces of creation, I guess you call them, right?
Literally almost elements at this point. Like
right.
the foundational blocks of what's existing.
Yeah, thing and nothing, right? You got thing and nothing. But it feels like, it feels like that then these descend into these other secondary, tertiary versions of things. And then Sep is then killed, but also still more in alignment with the hunger. That and this is one of this, and we talked about this before, this idea that some people hold, even though it's only mentioned in one or two places, that the Daedric princes are more Anuic, or they're not Anuic, they're Patamaic. Right? So Anu and Padme being the void, that, or voidish, come from the void.
Yeah, voidish,
whichever version of the story.
Yeah.
Right, but that the Daedric princes are Patamaic. In this version, Sep is Patamaic. In some version of the story, Lorcan is seen as being Patamaic, but yet is the one who convinced people to create anything at all. Right. So what is that? Because the void was hungry, so he needed to make a thing to then feed the void? None of it explains it like that.
Exactly. It's just, this is a very, we told you these were going to get weird.
Yeah. So there you go. That's the creation story in the monomyth. There are lots of other gods. Well, in fact, we'll probably set up a time to do at least one episode on some of the other gods in each of these pantheons and explain who they are and what they do in that pantheon. But this is kind of the foundation for it. There's one other document that, by the way, if this is your first episode listening, the monomyth and these stories from the monomyth come all the way back from like Morrowind. They've been in the series for a long time. One of the things ESO has done very well is release new books that kind of build on those old stories. This one is very, very short. It's just a series of quotes called Knowing Satakal, 7 Redguard Maxims from Elder Scrolls Online. And these are fun. I'll just read through them real quick. Lotus, chime in if you want. To deny the world must end is to deny that it began. Satakal is the making and the unmaking, the birth and the death, love and fear. So again, that combination of thing and unthing, right? Two together. Yep. When the world is the egg that Satakal laid, and the egg that in time Satakal shall eat. No mention of eggs in the monomyth, but children, eggs, descendants, that kind of tracks, right?
And I mean, if it's consistently eating everything in his path, including himself, that makes sense.
It also implies that Satakal will be the one that actually comes back and ends this Kelpa at some point, rather than it happening from inside.
That's true.
Which is kind of terrifying in a way.
It's a little freaky,
Yeah. To know Satakal, consider a river. As a snake sheds its skin and lives on, so a river sheds its water into the sea, yet is reborn at the source. Interesting analogy.
Okay.
To be the world's skin is to be everything, and to be everything is to be nothing. This is that, like, all, and if everything, if all you have is everything, then really you have nothing, because it's the duality thing again. Yeah,
it's like, it owning everything is the equivalent of having nothing, because there's no counter to it.
Right. Then 2 more. Fear not the unbelievers, for believer and unbeliever alike shall be eaten by the serpent god. So this is the whole, like, you don't have to believe in the truth, but the truth doesn't care if you believe in the truth.
Yeah, I was going to say, if it's actually the truth, that really doesn't matter, because it's just what's happening.
Right. Which is another one of those, like, religious concepts of, like, well, even if you don't believe that this is the truth of the way the world works or reality or whatever, it doesn't care.
If this is actually how it's done, it doesn't matter what you believe.
Right. And then the final one, does not the serpent made of sky above reflect the serpent made of sea below? Yea, it is so. Okay.
All right. I don't have any deep thoughts on that one.
Serpent in the sky seems like it's a reference to Sep, whose body had to fly around in the sky. The serpent made of the sea below, the things of the ground were made up of previous skins. Both Sep and the ground below are made up of previous skins of Satakal, which means everything's still just Satakal. Everything's just Satakal. Sure. That works. Yeah. It's all one thing. Yeah, so there you go. It's all still just Sadakal.
It's all just the same thing. Yeah,
it's
all right,
just the same
that's
thing.
fair. It's just
over and over again, and we're just in a cycle again. Which is kind of poetic.
It's just the same thing.
Yeah. I wanted to point out one other thing here. Towards the end of it, it talked about, I want to find the line again. Punishment, hunger fell out of his mouth. The rest of the world was allowed to strive back to godhood. Striving back to godhood sounds like elves. Yet these are
super. Yeah, I was going to say, you
men.
can go back to the episode where we talked about like the elven creation, and that's kind of the goal, is to shed this mortal coil so that you can just be these little floating, I don't know, god puffs, I guess.
God puffs.
I don't really know.
Yeah.
Just to picture these little like floofy little elves floating around being gods. So
yeah.
that's the end goal.
Right. So it's interesting that a Manish race would have this in their lore of striving to become gods again, which implies, much like this does, that they descended from godlike beings.
Right, which is very Murish. So it's an interesting difference between the other Manish race.
Yeah. So Blanket Wraith, welcome, who's in chat, says interesting correlations between Sadakal and Alduin. Yeah. So it seems like if you just reduce everything down, everything's a cycle, right? Alduin, Akatosh, Lorkhan, it's all just elements that create the beginning and the end of things, over and over again. It all goes back to Anu and Padme, or Satak and Akal, or whatever. And we start to see these similarities, as weird as they get in the different versions of creation myths in their own cultural ways, that are all kind of still just telling the same story of weird things happened, things descended from those weird things. Right. Creation was made. Somebody fooled somebody into making creation. Some beings were happy about it. Some beings weren't. Now here we are, and it's going to end again anyway at some point, and it all goes back to the source. It's kind
and the circle begins anew.
Right, which is kind of the parallel that you find in all of these. So, any final thoughts, Lotus? Anything else?
I mean, again, I do love that. Like, each of these is not progressively weirder by any means, but like we're kind of tackling them in the more bizarre later type of thing. But I love how there's like elements that tie them all together, even though they are so different from each other. I think that's very cool. And again, nobody's going to mistake this for some of the other ones by any means, but I love how it's just got this feel where it's like you said, they always have a basis in there's nothing, then there's something to counteract the nothing, and there's like a duality situation, and it kind of leads us through whatever story takes place after that to bring us to a situation where it's like, well, yeah, no, we all started from this thing, and then something happened, usually with like tricky intent, which is kind of weird that's an overarching theme through most of these stories, is like trickery to make life exist.
Right. Right.
I don't know, that as a concept in the series is weird to me, that there's always like this idea to life in the series, like mortal life type of thing, is obviously like the reason you play the games, like you're part of that mortal coil, so to speak. But it's always almost like should these things really exist? Like this wouldn't have just happened.
Right.
Somebody tricked somebody into making this happen, and now we're all dealing with these like mortals.
Which, like, the more we dig into this, the more it feels to me like this version of reality, this time, this Kalpa, is actually substantively different than any previous Kalpa.
The previous ones,
that
yes.
No mortals existed in previous Kalpas. I think it would probably be, I don't know if you can make this argument, but it seems worth speculating about, that the trickery of Lorkhan and mortals existing in this Kalpa, like, my assumptions are just like, oh, that happens, something like that happens in every Kalpa.
Right.
Like, and but I don't think it is.
Doesn't seem
it
like
seems
it's
like
implied
that's unique.
that's the case, actually.
Right. It seems more and more like this version of the way things play out is distinctly different than any previous time. And one of the things that this myth mentions is that when there was space for these beings to exist, they were bad at it the first time. Look at the invasions from the Daedric princes. Look at the nature of the Aedra and this feeling of like, well, they contributed, but now they're kind of noped out because they don't want to lose any more power by dipping back into reality in order to change things or imbue it with themselves anymore.
Exactly.
It seems, and on top of it, you can have the way that the Daedric princes find mortals endlessly fascinating. They wouldn't act like that if they've been through an infinite number of Kelpas with mortals before. They would be familiar with how mortals act.
Right.
But we still feel new to
about
them.
The way mortals act in the series that we've been playing seems, like you said, this is sort of a first. Like,
it's unique.
What is with these things?
Right.
Like,
they don't know what to expect. And so for the first time in all of eternity, they are going, we don't know how this story ends. Like, chances are Sedekal eats everything and it just starts over again. But while we're here, we don't really know how all of this works. And we're all just kind of figuring it out as we go. So it definitely makes that version of reality feel more likely. I could be proven wrong about this. This is just kind of one of those things that feels implied that I don't know that we'll ever get a real answer about.
Sure, but at the same time, it also gives, doing a little fourth wall breaking to the video game itself rather than the lore parts, is it gives you that ability to do what you want in these games because you're not bound by these constraints of fate the way that, a lot of dealings when you deal with the Daedric Prince from Aes Moore, it deals with fate, but also him predicting what you're going to do and him trying to get you there, but you can do some weird stuff that doesn't quite align.
Right.
And it's like,
he doesn't really know. He can predict, but he doesn't really know.
Right. So it's just like, it's to your point, this seems like something different than the previous timelines or Kalpas or whatever you want to call it. And that kind of plays into the gamey part of it, where it's like, well, yeah, you're controlling this. Yeah. You weren't controlling who wrote whatever.
Right. You're the only one with any agency at all.
Gameplay. Exactly.
Right.
So it's like, it's kind of a weird little meta fourth wall breaking thing where it's like, well, no, it actually plays into the fact that you do control this, whereas the other stuff was written for you and you can read about it. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. So I'm more of that mindset the further we get back into creation stories, because we haven't until recently we haven't talked about creation stories in a long time. So
no, it's not in a very long time.
Before you were part of the show.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was pre me.
Yeah. So there you go. There's Sedekal, the world skin, and the Yokudan creation myth. Now, there's lots of other myths. There's lots of other gods and powerful beings and things like that. We're going to get into a lot of those things in future episodes. So make sure you come back for those. And we're going to take a quick break. We've got some patrons to thank. We've got a random page, some other stuff. We'll be right back.
This is Hamis Morak, Dragonborn, and you are educating yourself to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast.
All right, we're back, and we've got some new patrons to thank. And also, every time we do a random page, we get something really... I didn't know this was a thing, so stay tuned. This is a good one. But first, we have to welcome Nicholas B, Talon L, let's see if I can talk correctly, Leanna R, CL, and Austin B. Welcome to the Patreon. Thank you for joining, and I hope you are enjoying your ad-free episodes. You can check out old episodes that no longer exist on the feed because we've been redoing those. You can also get t-shirts and stickers, join us for patron chats, all of that stuff. So patreon.com/Elder Scrolls Lorecast, where you can check that out. Also, shout outs to our Daedric Princes, Austin B, Baron Von Gingy, Blinding Vision, Hercine, Kira C, Mothman, and Peter R. That group is continuing to grow. And
appreciate awesome. You as well.
Yeah, and Austin, who is now a Daedric Prince who just signed up, has got called out on both of these, signed up for an entire year at a Daedric Prince tier and got a big discount because we just bought it all at once instead of month to month, which is super, super helpful to us. So thank you for
I was
signing
gonna
up.
say, much appreciated. That's very kind of you.
Yeah, but like,
Hope you enjoy.
yeah, we think we're glad you enjoyed the show that much.
I was gonna say, hope you continue to enjoy.
Yeah, yeah. So normally we would do a like a call-in message because people can call in on voiceline.app/Elder Scrolls or voicecast.app/ not voiceline, voicecast. But for some reason, it doesn't have the Google login on the screen anymore. And I'm not sure if that's just like a current glitch or maybe they got mad at Google. I don't know. But that's how I was logging in with my like official, Robots Radio Gmail account. But anyway, can't do it anymore, I guess. That's weird. Hopefully it comes back. So
That's awkward.
If you left us a message, hopefully we'll get back to it in the future.
Hopefully we can get access to it soon.
Yeah, it's weird, right? I might have to find another service and start using that instead. But thank you for all of your help and your support and all of that.
Fun ones.
Yeah, and your responses with your messages. Also, if you'd like to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, that helps a ton. If you leave it in the US, we'll be able to read that out on a future episode of the show. And it's actually super helpful. It's very, very helpful. Even if you don't listen on Apple, and even if most of our audience listens on like Spotify and other platforms, like watches on YouTube, all of that, it's still, those reviews get disseminated out into the internet. So it's still very helpful to do it there, particularly. So thank you to everybody for your support. All right, Lotus, you ready for the random page?
Let's randomize it.
All right, I got it right here. It says, this is another online thing. Elder Scrolls Online. It's another furnishing. I don't know why furnishing. Maybe because there's so many.
Furnishings, yeah. So
right.
A random page.
Furnishings. Courtyard. Statues. Druidic statue. Right hand. It's just
okay.
It's just a
raising
stone
its
hand that looks like this.
I don't know what this one. Yeah,
that's all it is. Here's what it says: Druidic statue, right hand, category courtyard statues, quality superior. This is a very good right hand.
That's good. That's nice. It's a nice right hand.
Limit type, traditional furnishings, bind on pickup, unlocked by buried bequest. Description: this druidic statue gestures to the right, inviting the viewer to be skillful in their workings, compassionate to others. So be skillful in your workings and compassionate to others, everybody.
All right, but only with your right hand.
Yeah.
What do you do with the left hand?
That's the one you wipe.
That way you're rude and
you wipe with you don't use.
Yeah. So I guess that would be rude to use that hand.
That's the rude hand. So you can purchase this, and you want to guess how much it costs?
65,000 gold.
2,000 gold.
Wow, that is a worthless rock.
It is on discount.
That is a discount rock.
Yeah, so the following achievement is required to purchase this furnishing. Buried Bequest. Complete an eye for an eye quest in Galen. And there's a picture of, was it Raj, the Khajiit?
Okay.
So I don't, maybe it has something to do with his quest. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember that quest name specifically.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I have this thing because I have that achievement.
Yeah, Razumdar. Quiz the quest giver. That's why his picture's on there.
I don't remember what that quest specifically related to in that one. So
yeah, me either. Anyway,
all right.
There you go. That's the random page.
We are certainly living up to the random name with that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Recently, these have been exceedingly random.
Yeah, let me hit it one more time and just see what else we get. Tamriel rebuilt. Random? Yeah, this is your bonum. I'm always, once we get something, I'm like, okay, is the next one going to be as weird as this? Tamriel rebuilt the last will and testament of Ulman Vathri. It's a quest for a mod, I think. Anyway,
that would be correct. Yeah, I think that is a quest. Sure.
There you go. Oddly specific details about Elder Scrolls. Yep. That's gonna wrap up this episode. Lotus, what else do you have going on?
So I'm actually away this weekend. We will be recording a new episode of Tales of Tamriel once myself and Arcaneer are back. Arcaneer is actually going to the ESO Tavern over in Germany this week. So that's exciting. If you're going to be at the ESO Tavern, definitely go say hi to Arc. I think he's still got some Tales of Tamriel goodies that we haven't managed to give out at these events yet that we just like to hand out to people when they come say hi. But yeah, so that's where he will be. Obviously, we have a lot to discuss on that show in regards to a lot of the ZeniMax Online Studios, Bethesda, Microsoft stuff that's happened recently. We've been kind of compiling notes on that before we discuss it. And the PTS has launched with the Notes 2 update 47 for ESO, and they're divisive as always. So we'll be looking at that next show as well. Always. We're excited to record once we're back. I mean, I'm just on a short vacation. Ark's traveling and getting more fun ESO stories or Elder Scrolls stories in general from the event. So lots to discuss once we're back.
I'm of the opinion at this point that we've had MMOs for over 20 years now.
Yeah.
Well over almost 30 years. I mean, what is that? Ultima Online was 30 years ago, I think. So now that we've had MMOs in existence for 30 years, and I've watched the news, and I've played ESO Online, and I've seen the changes. And I'm of the opinion that in a game that massive, where you have hundreds of thousands of people who have played for many different reasons, there's no winning. There's no way to patch the game in a way that doesn't piss off some significantly large percentage of the population. There's just no way to do it.
100%.
It's just impossible.
And what we always try to say is you want to make more people pleased with something than annoyed with something, and that's how you generally have the most happiness in a population.
Think about it like this.
Please a group by not ruining it for somebody else. That's like kind of like give everybody a little something, and don't necessarily, if at all, I mean, there's some scenarios that can't be helped, but like if somebody's like, I don't want PvP in my game. Okay, well, somebody who does want PvP, there's no medium there, but try to give a happy middle ground to as much as possible.
Yeah. I don't in any way want to have that job.
No, I do not envy the team that works on that stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Kudos to you, because that sounds like a huge headache.
Yeah, it's tough stuff. So good on them for just still trying to make a good product that people want to play. So there you go. All right. Well, yeah, go check out his show and all the stuff going on in Tales of Tamriel. I've got my shows, the Lord of the Rings Lorecast and the Fallout Lorecast. So if you're into those series, go check it out. I'll explain some of the cool lore stuff to you. You know how this works. Also, we've had a number of new shows join the network recently. A lot of people have been signing up on the Rocket Club, and the 40K Lorecast joined us. You probably heard them on the summer hangout episode that went up recently.
That was a fun episode.
Lotus. Yeah.
I'm glad I got to join you guys for that one.
Yeah, that was super fun. So we're going to do more of those in the future. And if you are interested in starting a podcast and want some help, then check out the Rocket Club, robotsradio.net. You'll find some details in the Rocket Club page about what we do and how we help new shows blast off into the stratosphere. I don't usually say that, but that's fun.
Yay.
Yay. All right. Thank you for being here, everyone. Lotus and I will be back next week with more fun lore stuff. And until then, stay safe out there. And if Sadakal's coming towards you, then try to walk sideways, because maybe you'll get out.
Do a Barry Sanders juke, and, you know.
That's a good callback. All right.
Yeah.
See you next time. Bye, everyone.
See you later.
Thanks for tuning in to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. Check out robotsradio.net for more podcasts just like this, and join us on the Robots Radio Discord. Be part of a community of over 5,000 people who are excited about video games and so much more. Robots Radio. Games, lore, stories, community. Just press play.